This was action from start to finish.
Yep.
Did you do your own stunts?
I mean, I did. I will say the hardest thing about this movie, one of the things that Edgar and I talked about is the investment of an audience when they are watching a movie and they know that the person they're following is doing those things, you know? And it was something that the people that I really admire, the people that I idolize, always sort of put their skin in the game to do these things and do them themselves and practically. And so I definitely took a lot of licks on this one. It's pretty nuts.
Speaking of following, I loved how, you know, we followed Richard's this whole movie.
Yeah.
You know, and his actions affected the trajectory of every character in this movie. Playing that role, how was it to where like every part of this movie was based upon your character and everything that they came in contact with?
Yeah, I mean, you have to realize it's like, you know, Ben Richards is sort of the audience surrogate. You know, we're all Ben. You know, we're all, you know, ordinary people, and we're none of us have superpowers. We're just a guy who's trying to show up for his family, and we all have people we love and people we care about. And we all think about the lengths we would go to protect them. And that's really what the story's about. It's a guy who signs up for an unwinnable show where everyone's trying to kill him in order to show up for the people he loves. And I think that's where I feel like, yeah, it's a very universal story. It's a very, you know, it's in the DNA of all of us.
He's such a reluctant hero.
Yeah.
And he finally accepts it towards the end. What do you hope, I guess, people walk away with when they see that, as far as like, you know, to accept that fate, that sometimes you can be that one that kind of sparks something?
I think the great story, you know, it reminds me of like Gladiator or you know, Braveheart in the ordinary people against extraordinary odds. You know, a man who's like fighting against the system. You know, and what I love about those stories, it's like it's people who are just trying to show up for their own and end up realizing that their problems aren't unique. You know, that they get to, because they are fighting for their own, they end up fighting for everyone. And I think there's a communal feeling after this movie, realizing that we're all in this together. You know what I mean? And it's so interesting in today's day and age. It's so, the media can be so quick to turn people on each other. You know, make villains out of people and whatnot. And I think there's something about our humanity, realizing that we're all in this together, to remind ourselves of that I think, I hope that's what audiences take away.
Are you a little more afraid of AI after this movie and how they kind of
I mean, it's crazy. Stephen King was way ahead of his time. I think
this one scared me. I said 87 in 2017, and now this one, to where it looks like now,
crazy.
You know, someone knows something that we don't know. So,
well, Stephen King is one of our great, you know, the great writers, but the fact that he set this book in 2025,
yeah,
and here we are, and a lot of the things that are in this movie that were also in his book are coming true. It's weird.
Your stature helped your role in this film. You played a very daunting character with the hunter. How does that come into play to where you kind of get to add to the mystique of Evan?
I mean, I love a mysterious character, and in this movie, I had a mask, so, and sunglasses, and a hat, and I'm basically covered up to my knuckles, so nothing but mystery here.
Now, speaking to that, there was a part where you got to take your mask off, and you had very important dialogue there. What was that part when you actually got to disrobe and reveal yourself and actually speak to Richards?
I felt naked. I felt naked. I didn't have my mask on. Got the cameras all around me. It was fun. It was, you know, the stakes are so high in that moment, and he doesn't have a choice. And both of those characters are fighting for their lives. And so, fun scene to play. And Glen Powell, what a, I mean, he gives like 1,000%. So to be, you know, with a scene partner like that, you can't beat it. And the scene is like violent, and we're fighting, and, you know, giving those movements our all. It was a really fun few days of shooting those scenes. I mean, fun is not the right word. Interesting.
No, you said fun. I liked it.
Yeah.
I like fun. I like fun. Now, I like that the dialogue was actually, to me, it reminded me, you have a very theatrical background as far as that. So how was it like going back to where you got to actually, the one time you did actually have a lot of dialogue, kind of reach back to that to give that emotion and speak from that sense?
Yeah, I mean, my roots were in theater, so, yeah, and this is, he's performing in this moment. He's spent a lot of years killing people on TV, but right now he's had his mask ripped off, and he knows that if I don't kill him, he's going to kill me. So it's like showtime, right? They're all watching, and there's no, nothing to hide behind. So yeah, it was a fun. It's all about the scene, isn't it? It's all about like playing the scene and trying to, surrender to what that moment is, no matter what it is.
Now, Evan mentions choices in that dialogue, as far as like one he made and the one that I guess Richards is supposed to make. If you would have put yourself in that role, as far as the choices that he makes, do you think you would have made the right one? I guess with everything that was pulled on him from like killing and kind of pulling the strings.
I mean, the game is rigged, so no one really gets a choice in this show, right? It's no one's gonna make it out alive. So McCone is a deeply damaged character. He's a grotesque of this world that we're creating, this 2025 that Richard Bachman, Stephen King wrote in 1981. It's a hostile place where people are entertained by watching people being hunted down and murdered in spectacular ways on television. And Evan McCone is the person who does that. He's not a nice guy. He doesn't have any choices himself,
I'm used to you being, in the midst of the action on the Avengers films and everything like that, but this one you controlled it. How was it being in that seat?
Like Oz. Like Oz with all the really fun. I mean, it was really fun. It was different to be able to, it's pretty stationary. There's not a lot of running. There's not a lot. There is for him, but not for me. I'm sitting here just trying to kind of oversee the whole thing, and it was very relaxed. I loved working with Glen. I thought he was great. I had seen his series. I'd seen him in Top Gun, which I thought he was fantastic in, but again, that's a very active thing. But I saw his series, so there's a lot of character stuff that he brought to it. You see these young actors and you don't know if they're just kind of Instagram obsessed, or if they're, really like cinephiles and old school, if they bring it, if they like are saturated by that idea of like, I want to be the best I can be. And he's very much like that.
So someone with that resume, how did the action in this, how does that, I guess, how did you grade it as far as like,
How do I grade it?
Yes. This
well,
was...
as well as I can. I mean, what am I going to say? It's okay. I think it's great. And as a viewer, I think it's great because I didn't get to see any of that. I got to see, Coleman Domingo and him be active on stage. That was a lot of action to me because he's so fantastic to watch. Everything that he does is incredible to me. But watching the movie was really surprising because I wasn't there the whole time. I was only there for 3 weeks or something.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, as far as Coleman's part and you two on, how was interacting with him on that? Because he was just a showmanship on this, so.
But he's so mellow. He's so, we're similar ages and we've kind of been through a similar trajectory. And I'd seen Sing Sing and I'm a major fan of his. And then to see what he was doing on this, which was so opposite of what he did in Sing Sing. It was fun. He's just fun to watch. Interesting, really interesting guy and really interesting actor.
So we have the reference as far as like today, as someone controlled, like you said, a puppet master and all this is Killian was. Whenever you, I guess, got into the role of that, what were some of your references to kind of pull?
A lot of people I've known throughout the years, I mean, everybody wants to talk about one specific reference, but I just think that a lot of people that I know, especially in the 80s, in the 80s and the early 90s, where people got really bloated with this idea of power or perceived power and ran with it.
Can I give you one of mine?
Yeah.
Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon?
Yeah.
What a great, like that was your reference? That's who came up? When you watch this guy, is that who came up?
No matter how far you got away from him.
Now I have something to talk about today. Good, Vince McMahon.
Stephen King and the original Running Man were, the inspiration. But where did you pull from as a director for this film?
Well, I think, I had read the book when I was a teenager, and I had read the book before I even saw the 1987 film. I probably read the book when I was like 14 years old. And it really stuck with me because the 1987 one with Arnold Schwarzenegger was a very sort of loose adaptation. And so in my head, I was like, oh, that's like a Stephen King book that hasn't really been adapted. So it was really like, and the thing I remembered about the book is something that I felt was like, oh, it's a first-person narrative, and you basically with Glen's character all the way through. And that was really exciting to me. It's like, so even though there are other like sort of films in this kind of genre, you know, the idea of making it a very intense experience where you're with the main character the entire time was something that was really, you know, exciting to me. And, you know, there are like other films in this genre that I love. You know, I love, you know, Blade Runner. I love like Terry Gilliam's Brazil. Like, you know, speaking of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I love, you know, Total Recall. I love Paul Verhoeven films like RoboCop and stuff. So there were like sort of films that were, I think, made at the time when the book was coming out. And there's a feeling in the movie of like it feeling slightly retro-futuristic in the sense of, I liked in the movie Brazil, they did this thing where it's an 80s movie, but it's kind of styled like the 40s. It's styled of the time when George Orwell wrote 1984. So when we were making this, I was thinking, well, what if the book, the 1982 book, is set in 2025? What if this was like Stephen King's imagination of what 2025 would look like? So it's sort of like retro-futuristic in terms of some things have become more advanced and some things have regressed.
From a director's perspective, that notion of Richards being the initiator of all this, what do you think people will take away from that when they see this? It only takes one person to kind of start a spark of people being against the machine.
Well, I think the thing that's fun about it, hopefully, is that Glen as Ben Richards is, for a lot of the movie, is like a reluctant revolutionary. You know, I think he starts to accept his part of the wave. But as he says in the movie, when Michael Cera calls him the initiator, he goes, I'm not the initiator. I'm just a guy trying to get back to his family. And Michael Cera says, it's you against the world, brother. Why not be both? And that's basically the key line of the movie. Is like, you can be both things. So I think sort of, I actually love, like, in the movie, Glen's performance. I love when he starts to lean into that. Because also the TV show is manipulating his words and his image to make him do and say things that he hasn't. And there's a point in the movie where he's like, okay, fuck it, I will be that guy.